Good day, everyone across North America. This is John Garmendi with Sony's Professional Display Solutions of America, welcoming you to another in our series of Tech Tuesday webinars. I hope everyone's having a great summer, and those of you here in the US had a happy and safe Independence Day holiday. As you know, we develop these webinars so that our customers, resellers, integrators, and consultants can stay informed and up to date on Sony's latest products and solutions. This month, we want to take a deeper dive into the four new series of Pro BRAVIA displays that we introduced at the Infocom show last month. We'll review the BZ50, 40, 35, and 30L series with sizes from 43 to 98 inches. We'll take a look at the 40L series that incorporates our deep black non-glare coating. And we'll talk a bit about some of the installation and usability aspects of the entire Pro BRAVIA display lineup. As always, before we start, a few items of housekeeping. As with all of our webinars, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. So please submit your questions via the in-event meeting questions panel. We'll also post links to the information referred to during the webinar in the chat panel. And we'll also post a link to our YouTube playlist, where you can view all of our archived Tech Tuesday webinars. Joining me today will be Joe Drury, Commercialization Manager for our Pro BRAVIA displays, and Anthony Cianfrano, Senior Product Manager for our Pro BRAVIA displays. We'll start off with a short video, then I'll turn it over to Anthony to lead the presentation, and I'll join you all back here later for Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Anthony Sanfrano here. Thanks, John, for the introduction and for rolling that nice video that we have prepared. It gives a pretty comprehensive overview of the 4 different product lines that we introduced right before InfoComm and showcased during the InfoComm show. So I'm going to take you into a little bit more detail than what the video showed about each of the different products and what the feature sets are. This is what the agenda looks like. I'm going to show you the roadmap um, as we transition from the old model to the new, or the current models to the new models. Then we'll go through some of the training specs, model highlights. We'll talk about the 98-inch, which is a new size for us, and the BZ40L, which is really one of the most significant advances that we have in our model line. And then we'll talk about installation flexibility and cosmetic design, usability, sustainability, which is a big part of Sony's initiative across the board, except for Bravia, it kind of leads the way in that aspect. And we'll sum it up with some model specs and comparisons. And then I'm going to hand it off to Joe. He'll go over some of the transition timing of the new models, and then we'll go into some Q&A. So going into the roadmap, this is the way our current lineup is. We have the BZ35J, which consists of the 2 sizes, 43 and 50, the BZ40H, which are the 4 sizes from 55 to 85, and the 100-inch BZ40J. And we also have the models in the BZ30J series, which goes from 32 up to 75. So as we move forward, and this is what we introduced prior to InfoComm and showcased at InfoComm, we have 3 categories, actually 4 if you count the 98-inch as its own series. So that's where the 4 series comes from. So the BZ40L sizes range from 55 to 85. The BZ50L, which is the 98-inch. If we go down to the BZ35L, we have the 4 sizes from 55 to 85. And then in the BZ30L range, which is the most comprehensive in terms of size, all the way from 32 to 98. Now, the 32 is not a new model. It's the only model that's not new in this current lineup. That's a carryover from 2021 when we introduced the 32-inch. But if you look at that BZ30L size range, it's very comprehensive in terms of size, everything from 32 up to 98. So we have 2 different 98-inch models. The dotted line here around the model sizes indicates the common cabinet design. So everything from 43 up to 75 across all 3 of the series have the same cabinet design. The 85-inch has its own design. It's similar to the BZ40H. And then the 98-inch, both of them have its own unique design for the cabinet. And it's not dramatically different. There's just some minor cosmetic differences between the different series or the size ranges. This next dotted line indicates that it's the same platform. And what that means is it's the same SoC that we've had in the current models, the ones we're transitioning from, and it's the same Android TV operating system. So that's across the board. So in terms of applications and compatibility with software, everything is the same. There's no change. There's no real risk of incompatibilities due to software or processing power due to the SoC. This shows what's changed in the models. The little bubble highlights on the left-hand side. What we're including, and I'll go into more detail about all of these, is the VISA centering bracket. I'll talk more about that coming up. Internal storage size and the brightness capacity. So those are the 3 things that changed in this series. Of course, the 100-inch moved to 98, and it's a lot lighter than the previous 100-inch model, and there's some changes to the bezel and the handles, which I'll talk about coming up here. In the BZ35 line, if you look to the left side, the two bubbles indicate the VISA centering bracket, which we're adding, and the internal storage size, and then the same holds true for the 30L series. And you can see the brightness range of each series in the box. So this next slide is going to talk about the series and the three kind of pillars that we emphasize as our strong points. Our picture quality, Sony is always well known for its picture quality, and we keep that true in this series. It's one of our strong points and probably always will be. Installation flexibility is something that we've improved, and that I'll talk more about that. And then the usability, and that goes over, encompasses a lot of different features. And many of those things are voice of customer things that we've added. That it shows that we listen to our customers and we put those things into the product. So this kind of unveils those curtains to show more detail about the different pillars that we just talked about. So in terms of picture performance, you can see the brightness range of each series. Some models are slightly different. The 32-inch, which is the 30J, is a 300 nit model. The rest of the 30L series is 440 nits, except for the 98, which is 515. In the 35L range, 550 nits. BZ40L, 700 nits, except for the 85 is 650. And the 98-inch 50L is 780 nits with a peak brightness of 1500 nits. An important thing that we're going to talk about coming up here is the haze rating. You can see that the BZ40L has a new technology. It's called deep black non-glare, and I'm going to have several slides to talk about that because it's a unique feature for Sony, and we'll talk about that. It's really kind of a game changer for us. Portrait tilt 24/7 in pro settings across the board. Nothing changed there. All our previous models were reliability tested for portrait tilt orientations, 24/7 operation, and pro settings are still available. So all the models have common feature sets. So rather than repeating myself over and over across the four lineups, this slide is to indicate all the things that are common across all the models. So all the B2B BRAVIAs come with pro features as standard. The B2B BRAVIA is designed for professionals and commercial use. These are not television sets. They're purpose built for commercial use. So going over some of the bullet points, various brightness lineup. So you can really choose the brightness that you need for the series, but you don't have to give up anything in terms of feature set and interface and things like that. So that's the common design, common interface, reliability. Sony logo has been moved to the side on all models. The 30Js, some did and some didn't, but now they all have Sony side logo. The VISA centering bracket, that's kind of a voice of customer thing that we added in that allows us to move the VISA centering holes to the cabinet center. We'll talk about that coming up. Energy Star across the board, or not across the board, but depends on some of the models. The SoC smart platform on all models, Android TV, Pro mode, IP and serial control, analog audio out, which is something that was dropped on the consumer side, but we carry it as well on the pro side. And then some of the embedded apps, I'll talk about that when we get into the pro settings menu. There's some very useful embedded applications that are built right into the display. Also, and a couple of those are the multi-display, and of course the Crestron XIO support is also a built-in app. And then the Cisco Rootkit certification is another thing that we got last year around Infocom timing, and that carries on to the new models. And then, of course, our picture quality. The B2B Bravia delivers the incredible high picture quality, which satisfies commercial users' demand. And so that's really something that we emphasize. And with the BZ series, it's really the best picture quality with the professional features. And that's what's really make these displays stand out and become very useful. You can see the 298-inch models use the XR processor. That's Sony's most sophisticated XR processor, picture processor. And then the other models use the X1 HDR 4K processor. And you can see some of the picture technologies that are carried over from the consumer side. We don't want to not use these high performance picture quality features. So we're happy to carry these over into the commercial line because they really make our display the best image quality on the market. So into the specific model highlights, the 98-inch, the two models that we offer now, the 50L is 700 nits, and it's not only brighter than the others in the market, but also has the incredible picture quality. Some of the comparisons to the 100-inch, our previous large size model, one of the significant things is the weight. We dropped the weight by 41 pounds. That's 22% compared to the BZ40J. So that's a huge factor for system integrators that are installing displays. The bezel thickness is decreased slightly from 28 millimeters to 20 millimeters. It's thinner bezel. And the handle, if you could see how the BZ40J handle was, it was vertical and it wasn't very good position to lift with. So they've moved it now to a horizontal position, which allows you to get a much better grip and lift the unit. And then there's another look. There's also a cutout inside the box so that you can get your hand under there to lift the unit. So the BZ40L series, which is probably the most significant in our lineup, the biggest change is the inclusion of the deep black non-glare coating. And that's a Sony unique feature, and it really puts us in a great position for applications that have high ambient light conditions. And I'll explain what this is in the upcoming slides. This chart here shows our current B2B Bravia in the upper left corner. It doesn't have a very high anti-glare treatment. It's like 2 or 3% depending on the model. And we've always stood behind picture quality. Just like I mentioned, picture quality is one of the pinnacles of Sony. And there's some trade-off when you use a high amount of anti-glare. And so we've always stood behind picture quality and a lower percentage of anti-glare. But clearly we recognize that some applications and some ambient conditions, we need to do better. We need to have a better surface treatment that it doesn't have as much reflection. So some of the consumer models use a low reflection treatment on some of the higher end Bravia models, and that works pretty well, but there's still a little bit of reflected image that remains. What's typical in the market is what's shown on the upper right corner, and that's a high amount of AG treatment or anti-glare. And that's, I'll talk about that in the next slide, what that actually is. And the key point on this slide is that the BZ40L series really combines both of anti-glare and low reflection treatments. So let's talk about what exactly those things are. So anti-glare, which is typically referred to as haze, you'll see that on the spec sheets. It's a haze percentage. It's actually a diffusion by a fine unevenness to the panel surface. It's either done mechanically or chemically to rough up the front surface, if you will, of the glass so that light is diffused as it hits the light. Incident light is diffused and it makes the seem very unfocused. If you look at the pictures on the right hand side, you can see a low haze percentage, how that has some reflection, but it's very sharp. But the high haze reflection is diffused. Well, it not only diffuses the ambient light, it also diffuses the light that's coming from the display. So that's not such a good thing. So when we go to the low reflection, what that is it's a surface treatment that works by canceling the reflected light. So the polarization of the light hitting the screen, it gets phase shifted, if you will, such that it cancels the reflected light. And so it's cancellation by interference. So those are the two common techniques to reduce reflection. What the deep black non-glare coating is a combination of both. And so that's what makes this technology unique for Sony, and it's really great. I mean, when I saw it, I was really impressed. There's hardly any reflection off of the screen, yet the picture remains sharp and high contrast. So let's look at the next slide here, and we'll give some comparisons. So a high haze percentage or a high anti-glare treatment, whenever you're off angle, and even when you're straight on, you can see that the blacks and you lose contrast. It becomes a little bit milky, and you lose a lot of contrast. With the current Bravia, the middle picture here, you can see that there's a fair amount of reflection. Although the picture is sharp and clear, there's some reflection off of the surface. Now with the new BZ40L and the deep black non-glare coating, the combination of anti-glare plus low reflection, it reduces the reflection and maintains high picture quality. So this is just a summary of what we talked about. So the contrast is very good in a bright environment because the image does not become white compared to the competition. Visibility is better than the competition, even with same brightness, because it's not defeated by the ambient light. And this applies to any area where there's high ambient light. This is an airport picture. Certainly many airports are window facing for the baggage claim and areas where you need displays. And also in some of the corporate environments, the newer designs are very open space with a lot of ambient light. And so this is very appropriate for those type of applications. And up at the very top, before we move on, is just a little example of how the anti-glare low reflection film compared to the normal AG film. And that's kind of a little bit exaggerated picture, but I think that delivers the point that you lose a lot of contrast with this type of high haze treatment. So let's move on to installation flexibility and cosmetic design. So there's been some improvements on this series. One of them is the VISA wall mount centering bracket. So this is now included in the box for all of the models except for the 32-inch and the 298-inch. Those already have the VISA mounting holes centered. The brackets attached to the back of the unit, I have a slide that'll talk more about it, and puts the centering holes in the cabinet center rather than offset towards the bottom like they are natively. The other small incremental improvement is this label that we applied to the back of the unit to indicate the proper orientation for portrait mount. A lot of customers aren't sure which way we rotate our displays, which is counterclockwise, and this will help the integrators with mounting the display in the proper rotation in portrait mode. It's on the back of every unit. This is the more detail on the centering brackets. There's two sizes. There's a small size for 43 to 55 inch, and then a larger size from 65 to 85 inch. The pictures on the right-hand side of this slide show kind of the steps of how you would use this. So the VISA centering or the VISA mounting holes are already populated with screws. Those screws come out. These VS adapters, these VISA spacer adapters go in. That brings the threaded holes flush with the cabinet back. And then you use the screws that you took out of the back to mount the centering brackets. And that moves the centering brackets up. And then you attach your wall mount accordingly. Now there is an exception to this. The screws that are already pre-installed in the unit are appropriate for all the models except for the 43 and 50 inch. Those screws you don't use from the cabinet back. You use the ones that are in the accessory bag. So if I can say that another way that's less confusing, the 55 to 85, you use the screws that come out of the back. The 43 to 50, you don't use those screws. You use the ones that are in the accessory bag. Sony side logo. This is a voice of customer thing that we implemented on our previous models. Some did, some didn't, but now everything across the board has Sony logo on the side. And then the common chassis design is something that I talked about in the beginning, which really lets our customers and system integrators choose the appropriate brightness and reflection treatment for the room. So in a room where ambient light is controlled, the BZ30L series is perfectly fine and works great in that environment. But in an environment where there's high ambient, like this picture that shows open windows, then step up to the BZ40L series. We have a solution for both environments. And you don't have to give up anything. It's the same cabinet design, same interface, same feature set. In terms of usability, there's a lot of things that have advanced in the last year or so in terms of usability. I'll talk about some of these coming up. One of the main things is our alliance partnerships that have made the Bravia Pro models even more powerful because of the software solutions from our partners. This is a look at the interface panel. This is common across the models. You can see that there's two USBs, there's digital audio out, analog audio out, which is indicated as a headphone jack, but that's your variable audio out. There's support for composite video, the four HDMIs, RS-232, and Ethernet IP control, and then there's DVI audio. If you use, I think it's HDMI 4, that one can take audio from this external port because, as you know, or if you don't know, HDMI or DVI doesn't carry audio, so you'd use a separate audio connection here, and that would be available on the output. Also, all these models include an adapter. You'll notice it's the RS-232 as a 3.5 millimeter stereo jack type, but we do include an adapter that breaks that out to a 9-pin D sub, and that's in all the models except for the 32 inch. This is an improvement in the menu system. This is an app. It's called One Step Settings. It's on the apps bar. We had this previously on our other models, but there were only two. And you can look at these as presets. So they're preset settings that allow you to choose a number of different settings for an application. Previously, we just had meeting room and signage. They've expanded that out now to have 5 different preset settings. And I'll show you what those are here on the next slide. So just taking the meeting room application, for example, it sets all of these different settings in a batch. So all you have to do is open the app, click the one-step setting for the application that you want, and it automatically applies the picture mode that turns the light sensor off, enables RS-232 via the serial port, turns off the idle TV standby, shut off power settings. All those things are done in one step, just like the description says. So that's advanced. The other thing that we've increased is the memory size. This is not something that the user can access, but for applications, it's huge because now applications have more memory to store content. So the previous models only had 16 gigabytes. Now the 98, the 40L, 35L all have 32 gigabytes. And that's very useful for applications. And we are really working with a lot of our solution partners, and this is a big advantage for them, a huge advantage that they can utilize more storage space on the display itself. The Pro mode and the Pro settings menu hasn't changed. It's still the same number of settings and same uh, look and feel to the user interface. So it divides up the different settings into action settings, initial source and volume, and function restrictions. If you look here on the left-hand side, there's a graphic that shows and describes what the functions can do to give you a little bit more intuitive idea of what the function actually does, and then a link, a QR code that links out to our Knowledge Center. The startup services is part of the Pro settings menu. Another a deeper menu that's called Startup Services, and that's where you find the embedded apps such as multi-display, the Crestron XIO support, Web Control UI. Those are all available here. You open them up, you install them, they become an app on your apps bar, and then you utilize them as you would any other app. I referred to the Knowledge Center. This is our link to the Knowledge Center. This is a technical resource that is available for everyone. It's not password protected or anything. It's available for the public. It has very rich number of resources for developers with APIs. It has CAD drawings. It has how-to guides and videos. So very useful and very informative. I refer to it often myself. And then our alliance and technology partners. I mentioned them several times in this section. It's really something that we've strengthened over the last couple years. If you check this alliance and technology partner page on our website, there's a list of all our alliance partners and all of the software solutions that we've verified to be compatible with. And there's a search menu in there that allows you to search by application and stuff like that. But it's very useful and informative tool that shows that we work with a variety of different partners and solutions. Sustainability, we talked about that in the beginning as one of our pillars, one of our strengths. Bravia is really in the Sony portfolio of all the components and products that Sony makes. Bravia is one of the products that really is leading the way in reducing the environmental footprint throughout the life cycle. Not only in the manufacturing, but also in the usage and also in its recyclability. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the things, well, there's several things that we've done. One thing is the adoption of the Sorplast. Sorplast is a plastic material that doesn't require a high amount of flame retardant. Because of it not requiring a high amount of flame retardant, it can reduce the amount of virgin plastic that we use in the recycle. So we've adopted that and incorporated that in some of the components inside the display. That's one of the things we've done. We have Energy Star on some of the models that help conserve and reduce power consumption. We've reduced the amount of ink on the carton box. You think that's a small factor, but it really adds up over a lot of products. So that's something that we've done. And the stand. The new models don't have a table stand bundled in the product anymore. We have optional accessories for 43 up to 65, and we have partners that can supply table stands for 75, 85, and 98. So that's another thing we've done to reduce the amount of environmental impact, because we learned, and this is a voice of customer thing as well, we learned from our customers that many of these are being wall mounted and the table stands were just being discarded. So we don't need to do that, and we've taken them out of the box. The other thing is the Eco Dashboard. This is an app that's on the apps bar, and it allows you to see all the different settings in the display that affect power consumption. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail coming up here. You can see the usage of recycled material and Sorplast in the previous series, the 40J, 40H, 35J, 30J. You can see that we use some components we're using the Sorplast material and some we're using regular recycled material. But take a look at the FY23 side. Everything is using some level of surplus in the materials and recycled plastic. So that's huge for recyclability. Talking about the Energy Star, unfortunately, some models do and some models don't. The BZ35L is the complete series that has all models compliant. 40L, there's the 65, and then the 30L, there's the 4350 and 85. And the Eco Dashboard. So this is the app that's on the Apps Bar. That's what this left-hand graphic shows, and it allows you to see all the different settings that would affect power consumption, and that allows you to turn them on or off from this dashboard. So previously, before this Eco Dashboard was available, these settings were in different menus, and you weren't really sure if they were or how they were affecting power consumption. So now you have a global view of everything in one spot, and you can turn on or turn off and see how that affects the power consumption. Very useful tool. And then going into the table stands, as I mentioned, the table stands are no longer included in the box, but there's optional SKUs for the different sizes. The 43-inch is the ST1L. The 50-inch has its own, which is the ST2L, and then 55 and 65 use the common one, which is the ST3L. Those are available as SKUs through Sony. If you're going to use a table stand, make sure that you order those as a separate component with the product. And then this is just a picture of the previous model and how much ink was used, and now the current carton box. And you can see a pretty dramatic reduction in the amount of ink that's used. All little things that add up to a lower footprint and better ecology and sustainability. Now this slide is a quick comparison from model to model, or series to series rather. You can see in the 30J to the 30L, there's the 32, as we already discussed, is the carryover. So that's included in this series now, but it's actually the BZ30J. But there's two additional sizes here, the 85 and the 98 inch. You can see that the logo position is now on the side. The Visa centering bracket is included in the box. As we move on, the 35J was two models. There was a 43-inch and a 50-inch. So it's kind of difficult to count them as a series. They took the place of the BZ35F that we first introduced back in 2018. So I'm going to show two different comparisons here. The BZ40H to the BZ35L is one comparison, and you can see the sizes remain the same. We took out the local dimming, which is more of a TV entertainment HDR type of feature, not necessarily necessary in our business, in the B2B business. So local dimming's been removed. That's what this red arrow indicates. The internal storage has increased in the centering bracket. So that's from the BZ40H to the BZ40L, or the BZ35L series. But we look at the BZ40H to the BZ40L, there's pretty dramatic difference. So the brightness is increased. You can see 700 nits up from 620, except for the 85, which is 650. The haze, which is a huge difference and makes us really stand out in the industry, is increased. Storage capacity increased, and the Visa centering bracket. This red arrow here is to indicate that the local dimming technology is not available anymore in the 40 series. And then when we look at the 40J to the 50L, the 100-inch goes to 98. Brightness is increased. The DCI P3 color gamut is slightly increased. Haze percentage is a little bit improved. Peak brightness improved, storage capacity improved, and the weight, which is dramatically improved, is shown here at the bottom. And then this is just a summary of all the different series and the spec comparisons between. between them. So I'll give you a few seconds to absorb this. I think we covered everything already. I don't see anything on this slide that we didn't already talk about. So from here, I would like to turn it over to Joe Drury, and he'll talk about our transition timing and how the current lineup is going to move into the new lineup. They're not going to all happen at once, and Joe will take us through that.
Anthony, thank you so much. Awesome, very thorough explanation of everything with our new lineup, everything that we announced before InfoComm, and as we saw all of you at InfoComm to talk about this. So thank you so much for that information. I wanted to quickly review on two main elements that are really kind of remaining for the discussion for 2023 and beyond Pro BRAVIA that are important to the discussion. The first one here is going to be the 2023 lineup transition. Of course, understanding which models we have available as you plan your business is very critical. So this is really a snapshot of earlier here in the week as to what our transition timing looks like. So as a notable call out, the green rows are for all of our current models. The blue rows are for all of the new models. And then there's a red highlight in the table that I'll go over in a second. But I'll start from the top to the bottom. So at the top, you can see that the 98 BZ50L, that's going to transition in as the 100 BZ40J transitions out. Currently, we're targeting around the October timeframe for the 98 BZ50L to be available. And then if you move down, we're looking at the BZ35L series. And that is also going to transition as a current series runs out. So here we're looking at the BZ35L will transition in as the BZ40H transitions out. Right now we're targeting August to be the time frame for the 65-inch models to transition, while the 55, 75, and 85-inch we're looking at November. There's a couple things that we're planning and targeting to try and move that up. So to convey it to you, we're really targeting September to October for those models. So please stay tuned for further details on that. Then for the 40L and the 30L series, you can see that all of those models are transitioning. They actually started the transition here in July. So that also includes the 98 BZ30L. In addition to this, what this means is that there's some 30Js that are still selling in conjunction with the 30Ls, and this kind of shows the time frame that we're looking at for the 30Js until we run out of inventory for that. So please work with your account managers as you look at this timing. Understand that the timing and the availability is subject to change any given day. So please work with them as you plan your business moving forward. Next slide, please. The other notable thing to mention for the 2023 Pro BRAVIA lineup are the Pro BRAVIA services. So here's a couple of the key bullets. So all standard warranties for 2023 Pro BRAVIA models. For the BZ50L and the BZ40L, both of those series come with a standard 5-year warranty. We're really excited about this. We believe that this service offering really showcases the reliability that we have in the Pro BRAVIA, and we want to pass along that feeling of having a reliable display along with these two series. The 35L and the 30L series are both going to come with a standard 3-year warranty. Specifically talking about these warranties, all Pro BRAVIA warranties fall under the Advanced Replacement Program. So what this means is that customers will receive a replacement unit at no cost in exchange for the return of a unit that's determined by Sony to be defective. And so this is really Sony believing in our product and making sure that we provide the absolute best service for our customers. All Pro BRAVIA series and displays that come with a 3-year warranty will have a 2-year extended warranty as an optional offering. So if you are looking at the 30 or the 35L series, which come with the standard 3-year warranty, we have SKUs for the extended warranties for all of those models. In addition to this, we also offer a white glove service, and this service provides a technician to the location of the display to remove the defective display and mount the replacement unit that comes from the advanced replacement warranty. For the white glove service, these SKUs are available for both 3 or 5-year warranties at either 2 or 5-day service. In addition to this, I also want to mention that all of the BZ40H models have the 2-year free extended warranty through registration. So please continue to use this service to provide the absolute best value for the Pro BRAVIA models that we have. And that's all that we had for you. I think now we're going to move it on to Q&A.
Hey, fantastic, Joe and Anthony. Great job. You covered a lot of material there. As you might expect, there's quite a few questions. So let's try to get through them all here. And I think I'll toss the first one over to Anthony. This one's from Patrick. Patrick asks, does the BZ50L offer the non-glare deep black like the 40L?
It does not.
And we've got a couple of questions, Anthony. I'll stay with you. A couple of questions around bezel and questions asking. We've got questions from Nick, and I think also from Aaron with respect to bezel-less or equal bezel models availability.
Okay. Was that the question?
That's the question.
What model? Yeah. So we've improved the evenness of the bezel from the time we've introduced the models in 2018 to our current lineup now. So they are the 32-inch and the 98-inch are already even. So they already have the same dimension, top, left, side, top, right, and bottom. The other models are improving. They're still not perfectly even, but there's only a few millimeters difference between top and sides and bottom. I don't have that number off my head, but it's like 4 or 5 millimeters. It's not very much. The reason for that is we have a module in the lower part of the bezel, which is the IR receiver, the LED indicator, and the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and LED indicator is in a module that's down at the bottom of the bezel. And unfortunately, that keeps the bezel thickness at the bottom a slightly larger than the other sides. In terms of bezel-less, we don't offer a bezel-less solution in our lineup, and we don't really promote our displays as being video wall displays. There's a multi-display function in the unit that allows you to do it if you want to. And these models are much better than previous models in terms of the evenness of the bezel, but they're not perfectly even.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. Joe, I've got one for you. This is from Aaron, and he asks, since these are coatings, can we expect the deep black non-glare technology to show up in other series and other models beyond the BZ40?
We're always looking to make the lineup, the portfolio better. But right now, this is what the lineup looks like. It needs to make sense that the pricing for the offering, the value in what you get in the Sony Pro BRAVIA display makes sense. But of course, everything, including panel treatments are always things that we consider as we look to improve in the future.
Thanks, Joe. Anthony, back to you. Another question from Kevin asks about the Visa wall mount adapters. Are they included or are they optional?
They're included. They're included in the box, and they're down at the bottom of the carton. So you got to kind of look for them when you take the unit out, but they are in the box. Everything except the 98-inch models and the 32-inch models will have the centering brackets in the carton box.
Okay, great. A question from John. He asks, which Sony series will work with AirPlay so they can send an app onto the screen using the AirPlay feature?
I can take this one. All of our models support AirPlay 2 and Chromecast. They're both built in. They don't require any kind of external dongle, and that's across the board. So they all support AirPlay 2 and Chromecast.
Hey, Joe, back to you. Question from Alicia. She asked that it seems as if Sony's changing their models every year. How long will these new models be in the market?
Yeah, we target 2-year rotation. This allows us to keep 2 years worth of continuity as everyone plans their business projects. But it also allows us the opportunity to bring in new evolutions of product to the market, such as, for example, deep black non-glare.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Um, so, Anthony, back to you relative to the Visa adapter. This one is from Casey asking about the Visa adapter depth. How much does it add to the overall display? And maybe you can couple that with another question that we have from Christina, who also asks about ADA requirements overall.
Okay, very good questions. The Visa centering adapter does indeed add some depth to the display. I don't know what the number is off of my head. It's like a 1/4 inch or definitely less than a 1/2 inch, but I don't know the number off the top of my head. A key point, though, with the centering bracket is you don't need to use it to mount the display to the wall. If you're trying to retrofit into a position that already has a wall mount that was designed for mounting holes that were centered in the cabinet, then you're going to want to use the centering bracket. If not, if it's a new design or flexible in the installation where that doesn't matter, you don't need to use the Visa centering bracket. So it's there if you need it. If you don't need it, you don't need to use it. In terms of ADA, all of our displays are less than 4 inches, including the 98-inch. So ADA is more than just the display depth, it's the display plus the mount. There's slim mounts on the market that make all of our displays ADA compliant. Whether or not the integrator chooses to use those or not is a different story. So we are aware of our cabinet depth. Our cabinet depth is a little bit deeper than some of the competitor models because we use a direct LED backlight system. And that's what allows us to have that higher brightness capacity than the competitors and more uniform brightness performance. So it's a trade-off. We are trading off depth right now for brightness and picture luminance uniformity. But we understand that the ADA requirement is critical for some opportunities, and so we're looking at different solutions. But to answer the questions, yes, the bracket adds depth. I don't know how much it is. I think it's less than a 1/2 inch, and all of our displays by themselves are less than 4 inches. So it comes down to really the combination of display and mount for ADA.
Anthony, staying with the Visa mount brackets, just for one more question. We've got a follow up here from Sumariko. Hope I pronounced that correctly. Asking, are the Visa centering brackets available separately, and can they be used with existing 30J display models?
They're not available separately. And yes, they could be used with those models, but they're not sold separately at this point. So that
Okay.
would be a roadblock in doing it with the 30Js.
Thank you, Anthony. Um, let's see where we're at here. Ed, Anthony, is probably for you as well, or Joe. Ed asks, can you use a laser pointer with any of these displays?
I have a little bit of experience with this, so I'll take this one. No, you can't. The red laser pointer gets absorbed by the panel, so you can't really use that. The deep black non-glare, I haven't tested it to see, so I don't know that. We're going to have to test that and see if you can use a laser pointer with the deep black non-glare. That's a good question, and it's something that we haven't tested, or at least I haven't tested.
Hey, Joe, we've got a question here from Shelley asking about sustainability, and as kind of a follow up to the sustainability question, asking about the cartons, and do the cartons actually have something that will allow the carton to be reused or closed again if the display were to be taken out and and inspected and then put back and then shipped to a site. I think Shelley may be referring to some of those plastic buttons that are kind of locking devices that we've seen on some cartons in the past. Maybe you can talk about the overall sustainability initiative
Yeah.
and comment specifically on reusing or reclosing the carton.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I personally have used this packaging a lot recently, taking displays out, putting them in travel cases, taking some displays out of travel cases, putting them back in these cardboard packaging. They can absolutely be reused. Some do the larger displays do use the plastic clips, um, and the mid-sized to smaller is a slip-on top. Um, it's a thicker cardboard that can definitely be reused. Um, Regarding the sustainability of the packaging itself, beyond that, we used a lot less ink. Um, but a lot of the focus around our packaging in particular is really around reducing the carbon footprint. But I do want to call out, while we're talking about packaging briefly, is even through these efforts, um, the for the packaging in particular, the focus is really on making sure that the display gets to where it needs to be, and safely and protected. So we're not cutting any corners for any other objectives. But the purpose of the packaging is to protect the packaging as well. So it's very good material to reuse.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Let's see if we can get through just a one or two more. We're coming down to the final minutes here. Anthony, Aaron asks why did the refresh rate why do we reduce the refresh rate from the 35, the BZ35 to the BZ40 series?
Right. Also on the 40H to the 40L also went from 120 to 60. It's I don't really have a good answer. I don't think the demand for 120 hertz was that prevalent in the B2B market. That's usually for fast motion video. Of course, some of the signage applications may have fast motion video, but our motion flow technology that we incorporate into the displays is pretty sophisticated, and it really helps smooth out any kind of motion blur. I guess it was just deemed not necessary in our market in a way to help maintain competitiveness.
Thanks, Anthony. One last question and one comment. I see we've got a request from Rodney. Rodney says, can Sony please consider making the adapters available for purchase? This will be very helpful should the ones that ship with the unit get damaged or lost. this combined with the reason for the previous question. So Rodney, we absolutely will take that under consideration.
Yeah.
And one last question. Christina asks, what version of HDMI are we supporting in the displays?
2.1.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. Well, look, we're actually overtime. It's 2:01 Eastern Time. We really appreciate everyone's time and participation. It's because of all the feedback that you've given us that we continue to do these. So please reach out to us with any requests or recommendations for future Tech Tuesday topics. As I've said in the past as well, we capture everyone's questions. So those of you, unfortunately, whose questions we weren't able to get to today, we can follow up and will follow up with you. And just a quick reminder to join us again back here on August 1st, where we'll have another in our series of RV on AV with our very own Rich Ventura. Next time, he'll be speaking about emerging technologies, and he'll have a panel join him, and you won't want to miss that one. So please, everyone, have a great day. We'll see you soon and enjoy the rest of your summer. Take care.
Thank you.